And we're live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into today's recap of Mavericks versus the Detroit Pistons, two things I want to cover. Make sure to go watch episode number 12 of the Mothership podcast. This week, we break down Killian Hayes and his recent play and some of his struggles and maybe why he is having some of these struggles. So make sure to go watch that and make sure to go like that YouTube video. And then also make sure to like and subscribe because me and Ryan this Friday and Saturday are going to be in Detroit bringing you vlogs and game coverage. We will be taking videos for our Instagram. So make sure to go follow us on Instagram at revved.up906. And then also just like and subscribe and turn on those post notifications because we will be having Revved Up recaps from our hotel room. And then we will be recording episode 13 from our hotel. And then we will also be having vlogs from us gallivanting Detroit. So make sure to tune in for all of those episodes. We are looking forward to our Detroit trip. To get to get into today's recap of Mavs versus the Detroit Pistons, that final score was 105-111 in the Dallas Mavericks' favor. Today, Luka Doncic had 24 points in the first quarter, ended up with 53, I believe. Is that
Yep,
correct? Um,
53.
so so Luka Doncic kind of tore us up. But what are some of your first takeaways from this game, Ryan?
At the beginning, we were playing like we did against Brooklyn. And just in that first half alone, it really did feel like we were playing Brooklyn because we were allowing Kyrie to do his thing and everybody else lock them down. That's what we were doing tonight with Luka and the Mavs. But once they got out of halftime, it completely changed because out of halftime, our defense kind of slowed down. And you saw like Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr., Spencer Dinwiddie, all these guys starting to play key minutes and get buckets when we've been stopping them and containing them all game long. And I really think it was the depth of the Mavericks that actually beat us tonight.
Right. They're a team that has great chemistry, that knows how to play well together within each other's game, and they also know when to give Luca the ball and get out of the way. And it seems like that's typically kind of the game plan for the Dallas Mavericks. Let the game come through Luca, and each and every night, guys around him have to be ready to step up when he's dishing them the ball. One of my things that came to mind during this game was just foul trouble.
Yeah,
We saw Jaden Ivey foul out with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then we saw Killian Hayes foul out in with about 2.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then we saw Isaiah Livers head into the half with four fouls.
yep.
But it's kind of unfortunate with a guy like Jaden Ivey, especially being a starter at point guard number one today. Shot 5 for 8 from the field, 14 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. So he had a good stat line. He probably would have reached 20 if he didn't foul out with 6 minutes left. And with a game that kind of came down to the last 2 minutes, it's kind of unfortunate for a guy like Ivy to be just sitting the bench because of fouls. Because if he was playing, I mean, I could maybe see a couple different plays coming our way rather than to the Dallas.
Yeah, and the foul trouble was terrible tonight. I don't know what was going on. Maybe the Mavericks are just that good at drawing fouls. I don't know. But I will say somebody that we really missed tonight was Hami. Because Hami has been coming off the bench for us and dropping 14 points a game. And tonight we missed him due to illness. But I can imagine if we would have had him tonight, the 14 points, we would have won the game. And he just gives that little boost and
Yep.
he just works his tail off whenever he steps foot on the court. And tonight we didn't have that with him. So then somebody else really had to step up, and there was nobody to really step up in that position. You saw Alec Burks. He started off the game great, but then it was got kind of like he got quiet. But that was more
Mhm.
of like he had to become the facilitator because of the IV foul trouble and the Killian Hayes foul trouble that really led to him and Livers being the 1 and 2 towards the end of the game there, which I don't think that works. Alec Burks is a guard, but Livers isn't. So
Right.
we just missed Hami tonight.
Yeah, and something I noticed too was the Mavericks went on a 10-0 run for the first 10 points of the game overall. I've noticed that when the Pistons start off that first quarter kind of struggling, that tends to show what the final score is going to be like at the end of 4 quarters. If the Pistons come out and struggle right away in that first quarter, it's typically a precursor for what that final score is going to look like. So it would be nice to see the Pistons kind of have maybe not hot starts, but to show that they can come out the gate and go on a couple runs and not let teams go on 10-0 run like they did. Sadiq Bey with not a bad game tonight, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 for 15 from the field and 5 for 11 from the 3-point line. Something that kind of irked me though was Sadiq missed a crucial layup to tie within a minute left. Then the next position, Luka hits a big time fadeaway jumper for a 4-point lead. It's times like that where we need Sadiq to show up when it comes to those crucial points at the end of a game. He's put together a solid stat line kind of night. We need him to show up when it goes and gets tough. And we just didn't see that happen tonight. So it would have been nice to see Sadiq kind of come through in the fourth quarter, but we just didn't see it happen.
Yeah, my two big takeaways is our big man play tonight. You saw Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren not show up at all. They were pretty much non-existent, non-factors in this game. And credit to Dwight Powell and JaVale McGee. Those are two of the better role players in the league today. Dwight Powell, even though on most teams he'd be probably riding the bench, not because he's bad, it's just most teams have a large amount of depth at center. But Dwight Powell works perfectly in the Maverick system. JaVale McGee has bounced around from team to team. But I think with the Mavs, he's actually found a good situation for him to get crucial playing time. And JaVale McGee is he's no bench warmer. He's gonna go out there, work his tail off, and get good shots up. And so when you have the height of those two going against Stu, who is smaller, and then you have Duren, who is inexperienced compared to McGee and Powell, it's going to lead to not non-crucial plays. And I was just unimpressed a little bit by those two guys tonight, because this is a game where you're coming off a loss where you got out rebounded, and then you come in today, and then the same thing happens again, pretty much.
Right.
They just were non-factors, and I think if Duren and Stu would have played much better than they actually did, I think this would have been a totally different game.
Yeah, I think for sure when you're seeing two guys kind of not necessarily have bad games the last game, but not necessarily huge factors, you're looking for a bounce back game, especially against a team like the Mavericks who don't have a star center. They have, like you were saying, those solid role players that typically you can expose them on a night to night. Not every night they're going to have great games. So you're kind of hoping for that bounce back game against the Mavericks here. And we just didn't really see that happen. Obviously, we got to address Bojan Bogdanovic. He just hit big shot after big shot, finished with 29 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 for 7 from the 3-point line, and 10 of 15 shooting. That's typically a recipe for success.
Yep.
It almost was a recipe for success. I like that from him. Obviously, till Cade gets back, he's kind of got to fill that offensive role. And, we kind of called him out after the last 2 games. He had 11 points, and then he had 18 last game, but it was a quiet 18. So it's nice to see him have a big night after a couple for Bojan quiet games, because we kind of saw him lose momentum at times. So that was really nice to see him kind of have a big game.
Yeah, I loved his game tonight. My only negative takeaway, which isn't really negative, but it is that final shot he took. I think he shouldn't have taken that shot. It was
Right.
kind of forced up. He was off balance and he's like, crap, what do I do? So he just threw it up. And there
Yeah.
was no contact there anyways. He never got hit. It was just
Right.
more of he lost his balance. So I would have really appreciated it if in those situations, I really wonder what Casey drew up. Did they draw up so Bojan would get the ball in the corner? Because there's not a lot of space to work in that area. So
Right.
I would have liked to see like a kick out to Burks to just facilitate for a second and get an
Hmm.
open shot. But that just didn't happen, and that's a big reason why we came away with the loss tonight. But overall, Bojan had a great game.
Right. There's not much more you can ask other than like some of those little intricacies of the plays. And you also, like you were saying, don't know if Casey, what role Casey is playing in those calls. We saw Killian Hayes come off the bench for the third game in a row now. They've been having Jaden Ivey start at the one. What do you kind of think the method behind the madness is there? Do you think they're just slowly letting Killian get back into the rotation after a shoulder injury? What do you think the method behind the madness is there?
I think it's a combination of slowly urging him back into the rotation, getting him ready to go, but
Right.
also they're just trying to work out different rotations, really,
Mhm.
because we've seen different rotations every couple weeks, really, this season.
Pretty
And so
much.
I'm not surprised that he's trying out Ivy at the one because we need to see Ivy at the one. We haven't seen him at the one yet this year. And the
Right.
way he's been playing lately as the one, it's like, wow, okay, he is legit. Whereas
Hmm.
when he's been playing at the two, he's kind of been overshadowed a little bit. And it's like you'll see some games where he goes off and you're like, oh, okay. But then you'll see other games where it's like, I don't know what you're doing there. It's not the greatest game for a top pick like that, but it is what it is. But yeah, so I think it's really more of like bringing Killian slowly back into the rotation and giving Ivy a shot at point guard and seeing what he can do with the amount of talent and athleticism he has because he's been playing great.
Right. Yeah, this game specifically against the Mavericks is one of those games that it's unfortunate that you look at the calendar and you see that as listed as an L because we were pretty evenly matched as far as box score. We see Pistons 14 turnovers, they had 10. We had 18 assists. The Mavs had 17. We both had 40 rebounds on the game. And then we shot 45% from the field. They shot 49.1% from the field. So, and we both nearly shot the same percentage from the free throw line. So, it's one of those games where you're like, it's a toss up, really, when you look at the box score, but then you look at the calendar and it's listed as an L. That's why, I know the Pistons are bottom of the East, but they're showing they can compete with teams like the Mavs that are a
Yep.
solid middle of the road team. So I do think that yes, they're at the bottom of the East, but I don't think that truly shows the growth they've had and the talent we still have.
Yeah, every season around this time and post All-Star break, we've seen them grow.
Yeah.
Because this team, the fact that they're growing this early compared to when the All-Star game is very good. Because we've had a tough stretch of games recently. Because we've been playing Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Dallas here. Dallas isn't the best out of those three by far, but
Mhm.
they're still a playoff caliber team. They only
Sure.
have Luka as their superstar, but they're still a playoff team and they know how to play together because they've all been together for a long time. So when you're competing against one of those teams that have been built and stayed the same every year, and you're competing that hard and staying that close, that's very impressive to me because that means you can compete with almost anyone. Because we beat Brooklyn, Milwaukee, they blew us out, but it's still we dropped 130 points on them. So we're showing that we can compete with these big time teams. It's just more of like, let's see what happens when Cade gets back. Let's see what happens with the draft coming up, if we get Wemby or not.
Right.
Even if we don't, we get a solid pick because it's gonna be pretty high anyways. So it's just you look at the cap space, you look at our future picks, and then you bring Cade back into the mix, and where this team is playing right now, and you added all those guys back and healthy, this team, I think of them as a playoff team.
Yeah, kind of focusing in on the young core of our team. We've been talking about each and every recap, Isaiah Livers and his progression coming back from injury. Tonight, we saw him have 9 points, 1 rebound, 2 for 5 from the field, 2 for 4 from the 3-point line. Ended up with, I think, a total of 4 fouls. I mean, to be honest, he gets exposed every once in a while on defense, but other than that, like when you're watching him play, I'll take 9 points from him.
Yeah.
I think he'll keep growing from there.
Yeah, he's definitely become more of a 3-and-D. I mean, that's what he was known for at Michigan. But you're starting to see that more and more as time goes on in the NBA now. And yeah, he's not going to drop 20 points consistently like he did at Michigan. It's the NBA now. It's different. You're going to have different amount of minutes. You're not going to be the guy. You're going to be a guy, but you're not going to be the guy. And on this team, he's a guy. But when he gets 29 minutes, he's a crucial part of this team. And Weaver loves him. So the fact that even though he's having 9 points, he still had a steal and a block tonight, which doesn't get talked about a lot with him because he's a great defender. He works his tail off. He dives on the floor. You saw that against Brooklyn. You saw that against Milwaukee. You've seen that against Dallas tonight. He just likes flying all over the place, and I really appreciate that because if he can just keep doing that on a nightly basis, even if it's just 9 points, I'm going to take that every night.
Right. Every team needs that guy that has solid defense and can go and get a bucket when the team needs it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Isaiah Livers is. And I think that's what he'll be for the future playoff team that will be the Pistons. Before we wrap up today's recap, any last takeaways you want to mention?
We got to stop the bench players and role players on any team from scoring. Because if we can let their stud go off, that's fine. Right. If we control the rest of the team, we'll have a better chance of winning the games because that just didn't happen tonight.
Yeah, we did definitely see the guys surrounding Luka take advantage of him getting a lot of attention. And they did a good job of when Pistons are corralling Luka gets them the ball and they make it happen. We saw guys like Spencer Dinwiddie make some big shots. And Hardaway Jr., Michigan guy, go blue, have a great solid game where he just went and got points when the Pistons let him have it. And that's in the end why they were able to win it late in the fourth quarter. So that will do it for today's Revved Up recap. That final score for Pistons versus Mavs was 111-105 in the Dallas Mavericks' favor. Before we leave today's episode, just want to give a quick shout out to Grind Clothing Co. We have our first drop with Grind. You can find the links to that merch in the description of this video and also in our YouTube bio. So make sure to go check out our new merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, and we have a new merch dropping also after our Detroit trip, and we will be kind of hinting at that merch and kind of giving you guys a preview of that new drop during our vlogs and our podcast while we're in Detroit. So make sure to go follow Grind Clothing Co. on Instagram and check out their new drops also. And they have a little bit of everything. Me and my girlfriend Grace were actually looking at it at dinner a couple nights ago, and she was like, wow, there's just so many different options. So it's definitely nice that Grind has so many different options for every different style and flavor that people like. So make sure to go follow them, and you can also find the links to our merch in their Instagram links as well. So we will see you guys in the next Revved Up Recap Wednesday.